Hello, in this video we're going to discuss where did humankind come from, part 3. So, Satan came to planet 1 and was responsible for convincing everyone to fight against each other, tribe versus tribe, and while Satan was an invisible soul form. This led to the extinction of humankind. In heaven, God was distraught over what had occurred and was very, very upset. Then God asked me to go to planet 1 and kill Satan and his followers. We had to take a knife, which is made of a type of stone that's really sharp, that is used for circumcision and also for cutting hair. The plan was for me to be dropped off at Belize by wormhole, the same wormhole in fact that humankind had used to get to planet 1. For extraction, a second wormhole was going to be used in order for me to return to heaven. This other wormhole was near a tree. So although most of that area where humankind were was devoid of vegetation because it had all been burned, there was a tree on top of a hill that was prominent that I would be able to find my way to in order to return to heaven. Upon arriving on planet 1, I died of dehydration and wound up in soul form. So, unlike here on Earth, when a person dies, the soul is protected. It is teleported by the Holy Spirit to either the storage dimension, as I mentioned, or to heaven. So in this case, this is before the technology of the Holy Spirit. And so in soul form, I reached down and picked up the knife and was able to spot some of Satan's followers because in soul form I could see them very clearly. I followed them. They led me to a large open area where there was a rock that was prominent and a flat area, and there was 100 million of Satan's followers chanting how they'd killed off all the humans, all of humankind. Throughout the time that Satan and his followers, all 100 million of them, had been in the storage dimension, they'd suffered soul decay. So they'd shrunk from 3 feet to 2 feet. That's how tall they are today, because the same duration has happened in this history, where they've been present in the storage dimension. A similar sort of set of circumstances occurred in heaven, although in this way, in this history, it was pre-planned and compensated for so that innocent parties were not involved in it. Using the knife, I destroyed Satan and all his followers' souls with the knife. It took 10 years. In the end, I removed Satan's head and took it with me and returned to heaven through the wormhole that was by the tree. In this history, when Satan was thrown out of heaven through a wormhole to the storage dimension, he fell 14 meters and landed on his head and died. Upon observing this from heaven, I popped down with a knife and removed his head and then returned to heaven. That head, I cleaned it up so it was just a skull, and I got a block of quartz crystal and carved a skull that was exactly the same as Satan's skull. I then, after Noah's flood, came into Belize in a spaceship, and we'd constructed a building in Belize that's like the pyramids, and inside that building is an exact copy of the rock for which I'd killed Satan on, and I placed the crystal skull on there and left it there. And since then, some people have found that crystal skull. It is unique compared to every other crystal skull that you'd find because the workmanship is outstanding. So there's some evidence there and a reason why that crystal skull is there. For the first history, after humankind had been wiped out and I'd returned to heaven, everyone mourned the loss of humankind and the angels that had died there, because there was no Holy Spirit back then. When the person died, the followers of Satan continued to attack the individuals and actually destroyed their souls as well. The soul is very fragile, and that's why it has to be protected. So everyone was distraught, myself included, and I continued to return to Planet 1, Earth, and research technology. There were other people with me, and throughout that history, technology in heaven increased. We went from the discovery of cooked meat and tea to the discovery of flight, the discovery of space travel, and eventually we wound up with artificial intelligence and living artificial intelligence and the Holy Spirit. And technology and science increased, and eventually there was the discovery of time travel, which is essentially a wormhole that goes back in time, and that is how time travel is achieved. It is not an easy thing doing time travel. There's a lot of mathematical equations involved in it. It is essentially 1,000 years of calculations for one cycle of time. There was a decision made in heaven to restart history. Everyone voted for this. In the first history, throughout the time of exploring the universe in the first history, contact was made with sentient alien life forms who had technology of their own in some cases. Other cases, there were tribes that were hunter-gatherers. This led to sentient alien life forms becoming part of heaven. And so they were involved in the vote to restart history. They're not like aliens that you see in movies. There's nothing mystical about them. They're just like normal, ordinary people. Some of them have the appearance of little people, and it reminds me a little bit of, as a race, that is what some look like. And their development and their culture is extremely good when they interacted with heaven. There was a good relationship between heaven and sentient alien life forms. And as a result, alien life forms in this universe on this day are extremely polite and good people, and are all Christian and speak English. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.